Hello and welcome to another episode of Gary's Classic Cars. This is part 2 of my Mini 30 restoration. So I hope you've enjoyed so far the fabrication and panel beating and placing on and tacking on and everything else I've managed to do. This next stage comes down to putting the paint on, which is some daunting times and some exciting times because you really move on with the restoration, but then you can have some headaches if you get silicons in your paint or you catch it with the spray tube from your spray gun or whatever challenges everybody has, because we all have different challenges. I was quite fortunate with moving into a new property. I had a lovely double garage, and as you can see, and had lots of space, so it was great to shove the imp out and have a full double garage to get around the vehicle. So it made my life very easy, and I was very fortunate. But we're not all fortunate. We all have to struggle in certain ways. But hopefully this will inspire the home restorer that, with a bit of perseverance and not necessarily fast speed, you can crack on and get your restoration done. And to the best of your ability, not everybody has a show car, but the important thing is keeping these older vehicles on the road. And we won't be restoring Teslas in 25 years, will we? Hopefully they'll be all burnt away, because they're not my favourite vehicles, these electric pieces of junk. But hey ho, each to their own. Some love them, some hate them. I'm a hater. So what we'll do, we'll move on to the next stage, part 2, and there will be a part 3, which will be the final bit, which once the car was up and done, I did a few little mods, but I'll do a bit of an introduction on that. So hope you're all enjoying so far, and sorry if I'm boring you a bit with my still restorations, but this was done back in 2009 before I started video and everything. Luckily I had everything on digital camera, but didn't even think about videoing and having a future channel on YouTube. So what I will do moving forwards, I'll get some panels off friends that I want repairing, and we'll do some live videos of repairing panels, putting doors, corners in, or whatever we can get our hands on, using my English wheel and whatnot. But anyway, enough waffling, let's get back on with the video, and please enjoy. Right, so first we'll move back onto mechanical, and this is the engine build section, should we say. So I was quite fortunate. I went to a show at Uttoxeter, to a mini show on the race course, and managed to get a cylinder head off a chap, and I don't think he realised what he had, and it was a big valve head, and I paid about 50 quid for it, so it was an absolute bargain. So I was really chuffed. Got it home and cleaned it all up, and give it a coat of the old Moag green, as you can see. So at the same time I painted the rocker cover, cleaned that up. That was the original Mini one, which was black, and I thought I'll do this a Cooper style to keep in period. So the next stage was to put the rocker cover on the head, made sure, just got a quick image, made sure it looked okay, and cleaned the face surface of the head up, get any excess paint off. So the next bit, I ended up purchasing a reconditioned 1380 block from Minisport. It was the easiest route. They do a cross bore, cost a bit of money. I think it was about £400 at the time for pistons and whatnot, and my crank reground, put new shells in. And I thought, this is great, it'll run lovely. Got a fancy cam for it, which was in eBay, I think I bought it. It was a 285 Piper. A little bit lumpy, but it did the job, so I was really happy. So once all the block and the head was cleaned up, the next part was to assemble it onto the gearbox. Managed to find a close ratio gearbox off eBay yet again. Bit of a bargain, I think about £100. Checked it over, put some new bearings, lay shaft bearings in, and whatnot, and it really was a good gearbox. Ended up then polishing all the ancillaries up, the clutch housing, the casing itself, and then dropped the engine on, which was a bit of a job because they're quite heavy, these cast iron Mini A series. But when they put them together with the aluminium, it looks really well. The next stage was to put the clutch cover on, clean all that up as well at the same time. New oil seal for the idler, and we're 3/4 of the engine built. Just dropped the distributor in, which I bought an electronic one. At the same time, put a duplex timing chain on, because I thought with having a bit of a heavy cam in it, it would be beneficial and a bit more power. So duplex chain was the only way really to proceed and future-proof any rattling from the single timing chain, what normally happens. The final stage was just to throw the head on with a new gasket, set the tappets, and then store the engine to one side, ready for the car to be painted and to be put back in. So that just got put to one side, like I said, with some sheeting over, ready for the install. My next stage was get the old welding wire washing line out again, clean up all the ancillaries, timing chain cover, alternator, pulley, fan housing, radiator, all the usual bits that need to be black, along with all the bits of suspension. So they got all fully clean, checked over, new ball joints, and then all gloss blacked with two pack, again hung on the washing line. Took a day to dry off, hard enough for me to manoeuvre them around, but eventually got there, got a great result. Put all new front wheel bearings in, ball joints, so it was just easy to do it prior to paint. The next stage was to get some paint on the underside of the vehicle. Like all my classics, I really like having body colour underneath. It's far easier to keep clean. I did stone chip the floor pans, but I left the wheel arches smooth because it was easier to clean, although you've got the potential of stone chips. But having put the red oxide and the primer on, grey primer, and then a couple of coats of base coat and some lacquer, didn't seem to really affect it over the 8 or 9 years I run it. But did all the inside first, engine bay, interior, boot bay, all underneath, again off the axle stands. Bit difficult, but after 2 or 3 coats, possibly 3, I think I put a base coat on because I kept missing bits. I got where I needed to do. Then it was to put the lacquer on. Now I didn't, like I did with the Fiesta, put sheeting on the floor. This was way before that, so I was just off the concrete floor, so I didn't stick to it, and it wasn't too bad actually. But it did get a good result, and it was nice and shiny underneath, and it kept really well. Very easy to clean moving forwards. Under the front wings is a bit awkward, as you can understand. You've got a gravity-fed spray gun trying to paint the inside of a wheel arch, which keeps hitting the inner arch, so kept having a few little challenges with that, and got a smaller spray gun so I could get into all the little awkward corners. But eventually, after a bit of perseverance on my back and stiff neck and covered in paint, I got there and very happy. I know it seems a bit silly to do all the inside of the floor pans gets covered with carpet, but at least I know if anyone picks a carpet up, it is all good and clean inside. Engine bay come out really well. Again, you don't see a great deal of it on the Mini because it's that blooming small. By the time you get your sound deadening on the bulkhead and the engine subframes in, but like everything else, it still needs to be done. Just use a little bit of paint on the car, just rather than waste it, to give a bit of a guide coat and just to see what it would look like when it was done. So I did finish off with the lacquer, and like I say, the sills come out really well, which is what everybody sees on a Mini when you just initially bend down. So that was important to make sure I got that the best I could. One thing I did decide to do was do the roof black. I think this sets it off because it ties in with the wheel arches. So that was the first stage. Then the next stage was to put the top coat on. This is cherry pearlescent red. Never painted pearlescent colours in my life. It had a very, very light gold tinge to it. But I also got 30% more maroon in to make it a little bit more deeper, just to stand out from the crowd. Although it does have the same tones as the standard pearlescent red, like I say, it's just a bit darker and richer, which I thought really suited the car. Again, all done in my garage with my little £10 spray gun. I think this was off Screwfix at the time, and a little 25 litre air compressor. And the results again were amazing. Base coat and lacquer. I did flat off, again because I like a flat paint finish, but really the finish from the gun and the 2-pack is real good, and it's a cracking paint, but you've just got to make sure you've got your PPE on. All the bits were done separately, which I was a bit concerned about different matches, but for the pearlescent didn't seem to have any issues with it. Then the next stage was, once all the suspension components were dry, was build them up onto the subframe. So I put high-low kit on this so I could adjust the suspension, because I wanted it to sit just nice, and then set it up once it was in the car. Again, all new brake pipes, and I put a stainless steel fuel line on. So I was future-proofing the car for any future owners. Eventually, new bump stops and new shock absorbers. I went down the GAZ route for shock absorbers. Now, some people complain about GAZ. I've never had any issues whatsoever, but it's like any part. Some you get good, some you get bad. But I had adjustable ones all the way around, and they worked a treat on the Mini. I was really, really happy. There's a replacement subframe. That again was second hand off the same guy I got the door off. I paid about 50 quid for it. I was really happy. It was a brilliant subframe in good condition. Again at the front, adjustable gas shock absorbers. Again, no issues. I've got them on my Hillman, never had an issue, but I do know people who have had issues with them. On the rear, I managed to get some second-hand mini fins, the original ones, not copies, so this really helped with the braking. And then down the front, I put Metro calipers on initially, but I did move forwards in the end and put my hand in my pocket and got some Mini Spot 4-pot aluminium calipers, which were absolutely brilliant with the new brake discs. So once I got all suspension components on, the trouble I had then was to trying to move it in and out of the garage. So as you can see, I put it on a wooden raft, which I got some casters from an old trolley, which really helped moving it around, particularly outside. Now came the headlamps to be installed and all the ancillary items like indicators, rest of the wheel arches, etc, etc. Really moved forwards, but still had the engine to put in, which I was not looking forwards to. My original plan was to go with steel banded wheels because I quite like the look of them, and I bought some second hand ones off eBay. Unfortunately, one of them was odd and I struggled to try and get a replacement, hence opting for the Revolutions. The next stage was to put the sound deadening on the bulkhead. This was Ardor material, which was like a sound deadening with a rubber flexible membrane, and then I had to put all the heater hoses through, fuse box mounted, and the brake master and clutch housing. Then fitted the headlamps, which were clear lens ones, but moving forwards when I did the upgrade or recommission, I changed them out for normal headlamps because they looked more period than the modern clear lensed option. Now things were coming together. The bias valve was on for the brakes, all the brake pipes, which were all replaced in copper, was all on, and the wiring fully completed. Now getting ready for putting the engine in, which I was not really looking forwards to. Next stage was putting the rear lights on and the boot handle, which I got early model ones for, Mark 1 boot handle and Mark 2 backlights because I wanted the period look rather than have the big reverse lighting. Finally got it back on its wheels and was able to push it around, a bit difficult on your own, even though it's quite light, just trying to steer and get it in through the garage doors. But everything was okay, I was really moving along. Got back in the garage, as you can see, all the windows are now in, the door mirrors are in, handles on the doors, chrome accessories are all on. Just waiting to put the engine in. Like I say, it was a bit difficult. Polished everything up. Did think about putting a twin tank on and started making one, then gave up because I couldn't bring myself to drill a hole in the panel, and if it was in the wrong place, it would have been a right nightmare. Finally got the engine in, running on a single carb, which I did change later to a twin carb setup for the Cooper S lookalike. Wasn't plain sailing with the engine. After about 1500 miles, I had this knock on it. I wondered what the heck it was. So I took the cylinder head off and ended up having some bore score. And it turns out that when Mini Sport had put the pistons on the rods, you heat the little ends up, and they'd overheated them and it had damaged them so the gudgeon pins wouldn't hold in, and then slid out and scored it. So yet again, I had to go back and get that redone. But that's just one of these things using old parts. Finally got round to refitting the trim. The carpets were really good with the exception of the tunnel carpet across where the seats bolt on and the inner wheel arches, so I got some of them from my local carpet shop, Coverdale, and it got a real good match. So those we're up to with the 3-clock dash and the old plastic dash on the top and the original white headlining, but more to come on the next stage.